From the WNIN Tri-State Public Media Center in downtown Evansville, I'm David James, and this is 2 Main Street. Two brothers who grew up in Evansville left town to pursue their dreams. Now they're back home and running a business together on Main Street. It's a bookstore, your brother's bookstore. So what are Sam and Adam Morris reading when they get some free time? Well, let's find out. Welcome, guys. So what good books are you on your reading list right now? Business books?
Yeah, right now I'm very selfishly reading a book called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. I don't know how to say his last name, but I think that's close enough.
Sounds like a riveting novel there, doesn't it?
It's actually the most readable business book I've ever read.
Really? I disagree. I couldn't disagree more.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm more of a Calvin and Hobbes kind of guy. Whenever it comes to these business books, I'm learning things that I should be doing that I don't want to be doing.
But anyway, when you actually get some time to read a book, what's on your list right now? What you'd like to read? Sam?
Yes, sorry. This is Sam from your brother's bookstore.
Yeah.
I am reading a book right now called The Deep Sky. That is basically a ship going to another planet full of colonists. They all get along, and then a sabotage happens. And it's interesting because in books like this, usually it's everybody's at odds, and then something bad happens. But in this one, everybody trusts each other at the beginning, and then finds out they might not need to. And it's very good. Anyway.
Yes.
This is Adam.
Yes, Adam.
David.
What are you reading besides comic books?
Well, right now,
sorry.
It's a little controversial, but I just finished A Good Tingler by good old Chuck Tingle. And it's a book called Camp Damascus, and it's a horror book, and it's his first foray into horror instead of love. And it's very different. It takes place in a gay conversion camp in Wisconsin.
Okay, there you got my attention.
And it's a horror story that takes place there. So everything that could go wrong is great.
Oh my God!
I also finished another book called Yellowface recently, and the person that wrote the Poppy Wars, R.F. Kuang, I think is what it is. And that book is really phenomenal. The truth is, this summer has had some great books that have come out. A lot of really interesting stuff, and it's been kind of refreshing because, like we've talked about this before, we don't always get to choose what we read. Mm-hmm. And the nice part is now that most books that I've been picking up have been really good. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy reading the local stuff also.
So when you guys were growing up, teenagers, pre-teens, were you into comic books?
Oh, yeah.
So
Definitely.
what were some of your favorite
We were Comic
characters?
Quest kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
Comic Quest?
Oh, yeah. We grew up, we're true Evansville
every
kids,
Wednesday.
And we would go, we'd hit the book broker also. They had a file where they set stuff back for us and things like
so
that.
So you're regulars.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But we definitely started out, so because we're brothers, we shared a lot of stuff. Wait, let me rephrase that. Because I'm the older brother, Sam used a lot of my stuff.
Yeah.
And he, I worked at Borders, so he would come in and be like, here's this stack of comics that you're going to buy for me, which is great because I read them all also. But we definitely grew up into the superhero, lots of Spider-Man, of course, Batman, because Batman's Batman. Mm-hmm. But I honestly, like, as we got older, we gravitated more into kind of like the serious stuff. You start reading, Mouse and Persepolis and those sort of things. And I remember, like, in high school finding, like, my first good comic book that didn't have anything to do with superheroes. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that this type of stuff existed.
So the dark side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Those were dark, some of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't heard Dark Side in a long time.
That's right. Okay.
I love it.
So you guys from Evansville, where'd you go to school?
So I went to North High School. We grew up with different parents. He grew up with our dad. I grew up with our mom. So I went to North High School. He went to Harrison.
I did.
Okay.
I grew up back when McCutcheonville was just cornfields. That's where we grew up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was out there for a long time too, and then I realized that I was a city boy and moved into the good old right off Green River Road, And
so after high school, what happened?
Life. We both went to college for a little bit and did our.
Where'd you go?
USI.
Yeah.
I worked at Borders And I was a manager there for almost 5 years, and I loved it. And that was when I really dove into bookstores, cafe, the whole lifestyle. Is like my first glimpse of things and how the book industry worked. And I was hooked.
Mm-hmm. And then you, Sam, you joined the Air Force?
I did. So I failed out of USI. I wanted to be an engineer and did terrible at it. Never went to class, and then joined the Air Force.
That's the problem.
That's what they say, the first step.
Yes.
Yeah, it turns out if the penalty for not showing up is you go to jail, that's fine for me. So I joined the Air Force, and I was an Arabic linguist for 6 years. I was attached to NSA CSS. And I can't talk about anything I did, of course. But but
we do have theories.
Okay.
yeah,
He worked on the Bermuda Triangle. He can't deny it. Tracked Sasquatch, who speaks Arabic.
yeah. That's little known fact. But yeah, so then I got out of the Air Force, was applying for colleges all over the place, and USI actually has a program where if you fail out and then you leave for 2 years, they'll erase all of your failures if you come back and maintain like an A average. So that was pretty attractive to me.
Sure.
So I came back and I went from a .357 GPA to a 3.9. And I'm pretty proud of that.
Well, you were ready for college.
Yeah.
You have to be ready for it.
Time makes fools of us all.
I'm fascinated about learning the Arabic language. How difficult was that?
Incredibly difficult. In fact, I failed out the first time there too. So
They have like a language school
yeah.
that you
So
go to?
in Monterey, California, there's the Presidio of Monterey. The Defense Language Institute Foreign Language Center is there. So while I was there, I was in the most grueling school you can imagine. It's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, nothing but Arabic. Almost no English is spoken. It's all native instructors. It's interesting because most of them are like political refugees, so a lot of Palestinians, a lot of Kurds. And we went there, and over the course of, it's supposed to be a year and a half. It took me 2 years. I became arguably fluent enough to pass the test. When I'm, scraped by skin of my teeth, it's obviously incredibly difficult. It has a 60% failure rate. And then when I went to actually use it, when I was working with it, I realized I wasn't really good at Arabic, but I was great at writing. So I was able to pivot pretty quickly into writing intelligence reports. So other people did the translations, and then I took their translations and put them out to the intelligence community at large. And that I was good at. I've always been good at writing in English.
So, and let's see. Adam, you ended up in New York City, is that right?
I did. I moved there originally just to kind of see. I knew that I needed to spread my wings, and I didn't really have anywhere to go, so I decided to go to the hardest place to make it, and thought, if I can do it here, I can do it anywhere. And so I did. And it was great. I worked for a hedge fund, a Wall Street hedge fund, which, people hear Wall Street and devil horns and all that stuff comes synonymous.
You don't look like a Wall Street type.
I got that a lot. A lot of people would meet me and they'd be like, "This is not what I expected," but it's fine. But I'll be honest, like the day job was incredibly boring. It was a lot of research and helping people do, whatever sort of anything that they did. I was originally hired to file, and then they realized I had a brain, and so they started kind of using me and slowly moving up and doing things. But the real thing that I did in New York City was I went to concerts, and I went to museums, and I joined as many museums as I could. I was a docent at the Museum of Modern Art in Manhattan. My goal was to see a show a week while I was in New York, because it's, you can pay $20 to go see to the cinema, or I could pay $20 and go see, the Allman Brothers, or, stand outside of Madison Square Garden and get a $5 ticket to go see, Billy Joel or anybody. But my goal was to see 52 shows a year. And I have a shoebox at home that's full of about 700 concert tickets. I blew my 52 out of the water every year. But it's New York City, so I'm very spoiled, and I explored a lot of bookstores.
And you mentioned the Strand.
Yeah, so there's the Strand in New York City, and it's in Union Square, and right next to it was a place called Forbidden Planet, which is a comic book shop, and it's one of the meccas of back in the day, and like Midtown also, but it was really good, where I could go and I could look at my comics, but then next to it was a place called the Strand, and the Strand is very unique. They have miles and miles. They count their books by how many miles it makes. And they had a location that was downtown that had like 800 miles or something, and I think that the Midtown or the Union Square location was like 300. But you had all of your new books and your all of that, and there's rare books. I was telling, there's a signed Herman Melville there, which is one day
The dream.
But then outside are just a bunch of carts that are $1 book.
Sure.
They're just $1 books, and we absolutely borrowed that idea. And the Strand is a huge influence on
Definitely
what we do and what we decided to do. And there's another place called Powell's, and we based ourselves off of that. If you ever get a chance out in Portland, Oregon, it's another bookstore that takes up an entire city block, and each little storefront is one's fiction, one's history, one's whatever. It really is an incredibly interesting store, and we recognized that a bookstore that's unique is completely different than your standard Barnes and Noble, where you walk in and it's 20% books and 40% toys, and we didn't want that. We want it to be a bookstore. Now we carry things that are other than books, but we try to stick within the book culture and things like that.
When did you decide to go into business together? When was that decision made? When did the light bulb go off on that one?
I don't know if we've decided yet.
So
okay.
it kind of was an accident. I was visiting my mother one day, and she said, "Did you know that Adam's opening a bookstore?" So Adam's original plan was sound. He knows books better than anybody. He knows the people in Evansville and what they read, and these are all compliments that I'll be giving. But his original plan was Green River Road, pretty close to Barnes & Noble. He wanted to make the coolest, unique bookstore imaginable in a rough location for a bookstore because it was too close to Barnes & Noble. And I have my MBA, and basically I said, hey, let me jump in on this. I didn't really give a choice.
Yeah, you didn't.
Nope.
I remember it vividly. Like, I was sitting in the house, and Sam called, and he was like, hey, so I'm in. And I was like, you're in what? Like, you're in on what? And then he was like, here's why.
Yeah. So my original plan was, let me show my brother that this is a terrible idea. So I said, we'll do the research. I have always wanted to do, a bookstore. We had talked, as kids, we talked about, let's do a comic book store together, and, all of those things. And my plan was, let's do the research, and we'll get all of the numbers out, and I will prove to you that a bookstore will fail. So we did the research, and we found all of the numbers, and we connected with the Small Business Development Center, and we did all of the steps that we needed to prove that it was a bad idea, and I could not have been more wrong. So we opened a bookstore.
And you decided on downtown Evansville.
We did, and that we went back and forth with that a lot. The bookstore, in the idea that I had originally, whenever I was by myself, was literally going to be like my bookstore. I was the employee that was there from 10 to 6, 5 days a week.
And you might have a cot in the back.
Literally, like, and that was the idea, was that I was going to just have like a live-in bookstore, maybe a cat or so, or, just a unique Evansville bookstore. But then we looked at a number of places, but honestly, it's the Downtown Evansville Economic Group that ruined it all for us. It's because they showed us like how they made it so easy for us.
Yeah. They printed us 40-page packets for all of the locations we were looking at.
Yeah. It had demographics of how many, of course, race, age, gender is all in there, but it's just and this is just census information compiled by a group for people that want to do business. And this stuff is available out there. So as we were doing research, it was easy for us to say, who is our target audience here?
Sure.
And we saw that downtown and the west side did not have easy access to a bookstore. There were 2 bookstores on the east side, and we didn't want to step on Bluestocking their toes too much. So we kind of bounced around different places, and landing on Main Street just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm.
We had a really good realtor, and they were very helpful. And we never thought that we could afford anything on Main Street. But then once we decided, once we started talking about we were coming to Main Street, that's when the politics, I guess, of it all happened, where people started coming to us and they were like, please put this bookstore on Main Street.
Well,
like,
tell me about your location. I was formerly a dance studio?
Yeah,
Yes.
so that was the
This
last
is
thing it was.
504?
Yes.
504 Main
Main
Street.
Street, okay.
Yeah,
504 Main Street.
We're next to Milano's, right down the street from Tiki on Main. We watched the new Victory sign go up
Yeah.
yesterday, right
Oh,
down the
that's
street.
right,
from
yeah.
Very
us.
cool.
Mhm.
The building itself is very strange. So if you look at the historic register, the Registry of Historic Buildings, you will see all of the buildings on Main Street. You'll see what architects built them, what construction companies were involved. Our entry says prior to 1919 ?
So we have no idea.
No idea. So 1919 was when the first business was registered being in it. It was a financial firm. And then in 1925, it was a place called the Bamboo Inn.
Yeah.
It was a Chinese restaurant that got busted
It was part of the syndicate.
yeah.
Oh, my.
The Chinese syndicate, and they had on Meridian in Indy, they had a Bamboo Inn, and they had one in Chicago, and they were out of Chicago, and 25 people got arrested in our location for selling white powder and black tar, aka ancient Chinese medicine.
Okay.
That's what they kept
opium.
saying, and this is real.
Yeah.
And we didn't know this stuff until after we gutted everything, and we kept looking at strange things like, why is there a chimney exhaust on the inside of this building?
Yeah.
Like, was this originally an outside wall? And if you come in, if you look around the actual architecture of our building, it's just this Frankenstein
Yeah.
mess. And that wasn't there whenever we first moved in. We gutted it. And upstairs was a tap dance floor, and we actually built our front desk out of that tap dance floor.
Yeah.
So, we kind of had to, but we also did a lot of like refurbishing, but we also wanted to kind of keep it open and unique. And we also found a tunnel underneath the store.
Well, you have a trap door?
Yep, which
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to segue into because everybody loves our tunnels
Yeah,
talk.
we love the trap door
Welcome to Tunnel
story.
Talk.
So when did you discover the trap door?
So when the contractors tore up the floor, the dance floor,
The downstairs floor.
right, it
Okay.
was
They tore down
built
the
up.
concrete. They tore it down to where it's like the foundation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was on, basically they had studs along the floor and then had built the dance floor on top of it so that it would have a little give when they were dancing on it.
Oh, yeah.
When they took all of that out, there was a carpeted wood trap door just set in the floor underneath
Like
of
a
it.
piece of wood with carpet on it
Mm-hmm.
in a square that sat over the top of this, I guess, ladder.
Yeah.
I guess.
So it's literally 2x4s put in roughly a ladder shape built
on the
into the wall. Yep. So if you go down, you're in a room that's about 10 by 10 bricks. There are some arches that have been bricked up, and there's a hole in one wall. Modern PVC pipe is down there, so we're definitely not the first people to have discovered it.
Right.
But
The first area.
right. So when we found out about it, we were talking about it. Anytime that anything downtown is found that's underground, everybody always says it's the Underground Railroad. And what we found out from the African American Museum is it usually
never
is
is.
not.
It never is.
They have not found very many actual places with evidence. Most of these tunnels were like coal chutes, or, as in our case, underground tunnels that were used for gambling dens and distilleries and things like that.
Prohibition.
Well, that kind of goes back to the Bamboo Inn, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is our
Nefarious activity.
and at one point our store was pantsuits.
Yeah.
But it was during when women first started wearing pantsuits, so it was a very controversial store over pantsuits.
Yeah,
you go.
that's we keep joking about how our store was like a den of sin, and now we're committing the sin of poetry.
Yeah,
Well, and you have banned books too. You know?
we do.
Yeah,
We
you
live
guys-
our life by day.
You guys are evil, definitely.
Yeah.
My guests are Sam and Adam Morris, owners of your brother's bookstore. Siblings sometimes disagree. Do you guys ever get into any little tiffs over something?
I beat him up weekly
Oh,
just to
okay.
keep making me remember.
The big brother thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
Definitely.
I may be significantly smaller and
Well,
no military
I was thinking,
experience.
Less handsome.
Yeah,
That wouldn't go very far. I wouldn't think.
but yeah,
You guys get along pretty good?
we do. Whenever I start getting mad at him, I look in the mirror and I realize that I'm me and he's him, and it's great.
We have disagreed our entire lives on a lot of things, and we've gotten good at figuring out that we're both probably wrong, and then pretending like the disagreement never happened.
We absolutely. I mean, we raise our voices at each other. We're brothers,
Yeah.
and we're partners in a business.
Yeah.
And honestly, the business is the easy part, and being brothers is relatively easy too. And I mean, we shared a bed until we were way too late in life.
Well, it was separate beds, but they were connected. It was a day bed.
I slept on the trundle,
Yeah.
Okay.
but like I didn't pull it out all the way. I barely pulled it out. But we shared a room, and so early in life, like we were used to each other. Like I would lay in bed and read to him as a child. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom was the first book he ever learned to read, quote unquote. And he didn't learn to read it; he just memorized the book. So I would flip to the
Counts.
wrong pages,
Of course.
and I would test him, and I figured him out pretty quick.
Any other children in the family?
We do. We have an older brother.
Yep.
There's three of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people meet us and they always say, "Oh my God, there's three of you,"
Yeah.
because we're very much alike.
So what's he up to?
He's an artist. He's a tattooist here in town. Matthew Morris, go see him. Earthborn, great guy. He's done. We're both pretty covered in tattoos.
Yeah,
and,
we're his portfolio.
yeah,
Okay.
but we're his brothers. So anytime he would get like a new machine or need to practice a new style or work on some shading or something,
Or Christmas
he would
gifts.
work on a body that didn't matter, quote, and that was us.
Yeah.
So, guys, we do have a lot of talented authors here in the tri-state. I know you showcase them, book signings. Kelly Coors of Evansville, he has this new book about the gay history of Evansville. I know it's been very popular.
Yep.
And you guys do foster all these authors.
It is
Absolutely.
true. It's funny because David, we've watched you interview a number of people that we deal with on a daily basis, and it's kind of a badge of honor sort of thing. It's very, very cool, but it's also very interesting because like I can plug a whole bunch of stuff for you right here. Like out in Evansville, the Kelly Corus book, Wide Open Evansville.
Yes.
But the
Well,
reality is that there's a ton of books about Evansville. And Evansville's history is not what we learned growing up. I mean, we had 2 red light districts at one point, and the Prohibition tunnels. The flood. One thing about our tunnels is that there's 2 feet of silt down there from the 1937 flood. I think is when it was 37.
Wow.
And it's Evansville's history is remarkable, and I wish that I would have learned it younger. And now we've kind of taken it upon ourselves to educate.
Definitely.
Everybody comes into the store and we start talking to things, and we begin to realize, nobody knew that the chief of police during Prohibition went to federal prison.
Right.
And then came out
Mm-hmm.
with 2 other police officers, and those 2 police officers went back to work for the police department.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Wide Open Evansville had
Yeah.
the author on here. That's a good book
Eric,
to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That book is the beginning. That book really introduces how different Evansville's past is. Sure, we built LSTs and planes and things like that, but most of the people that could fight in Evansville were gone. So 50,000 people came to Evansville, and there was no law. And it just went nuts in a very interesting way. And the train lines and the canal that was down here.
Oh, yeah.
It's fascinating.
Well, James McLeod, of course, the history professor at the University of Evansville, is
Yeah.
really digging deep into the local history of this community.
Absolutely.
And he's cranking out the books.
We are big fans of his.
Yeah.
Like we are very much. We know he has a book coming up. He's already talked to us about doing a signing and everything. We're huge fans of his. We would have been fans of his regardless of the signing. But he's fascinating, and he has a book out already. I think, right?
He has several.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of them.
Well, the whole idea of the wartime history, World War II history in Evansville, with all the production for the war effort,
Absolutely.
the ships and the planes and the ammunition.
This was a very intricate part of D-Day.
Oh yeah, definitely. So this gives you a chance when these authors come in for these book signings. I know each one of these authors is a fascinating person, and you guys learn so much from them.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah. We very often, after we have our signings and we close the doors, we'll sit on the couches and just talk for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But we have great conversations, and we learn a lot. And then whenever customers come in and they pick up the book, then we jump on them and we say, "Hey, you might not know this."
Yeah. It's funny because I can pick up. I will try to leave people alone in their conversations, but then I'll hear a book title, and I'm like, I interject. And then I'm like, oh wait, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you guys, but that is a really good book.
You have a footnote to that conversation. Now you have some, Adam. You have some special books under glass.
I do.
Your personal collection. Tell me about those.
Well, my personal collection is reluctantly up for sale, but there are a number. So whenever I lived in New York City, there were signings left and right. So finding Neil Gaiman out in public was easy, and I would just pop up and take. I started collecting first editions and things that I would find at other bookstores. And Sam and I would travel and go to bookstores. Anytime we did anything, where we would meet up, it revolved around bookstores and things like that. We went to Cannery Row.
Yeah.
We went there, and which is fascinating. It's a whole John Steinbeck town. Love it. But the books that I have I have some. I have this signed copy of the Phantom Toll Booth for sale in the store. There's some Beck, the musician. I have some stuff by him, some things. And I've got some Toni Morrison first edition things in there. Lots of signed Neil Gaiman. My prize, though, is there's a travel dog named Caruso who he's a little bitty wiener dog. And I have a signed copy of Caruso's World Travel with his little paw print stamped on it. That book is not for sale. It's the only book that's not for sale in the entire place.
Okay.
Because it means that much to me.
Well, how'd you acquire that?
I bought it.
I thought it was handed down through generations.
I wish I would give anything to meet Caruso, but he's too world traveled. He's right now he's on the beaches in Thailand and probably drinking Mai Tais, as dogs do.
Now you describe the atmosphere of your bookstore, warm and welcoming. You say when you're downtown, come see us, claim a chair, curl up with a good book, come to our book clubs, poetry readings, and book signings. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, we're going to steal that blurb.
I wrote that, actually.
Well, yeah, I thought that sounded familiar to you, didn't it?
It did.
So it is a very welcoming place.
We get a lot of comments about how cozy, people come in immediately, and the buzzword is cozy. That a lot of people, we want people to feel comfortable grabbing a book off of the shelf and sitting down and reading. And there's actually there's a lot of regulars that I have. These are my new regulars. So I brought a lot of regulars with me from Barnes & Noble and Borders and my book buying past. We came in with a pretty good base. The thing that I was not expecting was to meet so many new people that are a different type of reader. Indie bookstores are very different than corporate bookstores. And I never really worked in a small bookstore like this. And the one thing
how are they different?
Well, one of the big things is we want people to come in and sit and read. We're not going to pester them about, do you need help? Would you like to buy a membership sort of thing? We don't do that.
You're not hovering.
No. And we greet people when they walk in. And, if I see them looking at something that we can talk to them about, we do. A lot of people come to us. But if somebody wants to come and sit for, 2 hours and read on the shelf, we let it happen.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
We encourage it. We want to have a destination that people can come to and sit and absorb whatever kind of culture they want.
That was one of our guiding philosophies when we were designing the bookstore, was that we wanted to sell the bookstore, not the books.
Yeah.
So we designed it intentionally to have space to sit and read, to have lighting that's conducive to reading. It's a little dimmer than you would expect, but it's warm, and It it's not too rough on the eyes.
And we have a whole upstairs that has no merchandise in it.
Yeah.
The only books that are up there are part of the Bill Sovereign Memorial Library. He was the Evansville Poet Laureate for a long time that had his show on. He had a Poetry Speaks at Boca for like 10 years. And then he passed away, and we took his whole library and put it upstairs, and poets use it for research.
Yeah.
There's so many chap books up there from like the 90s and early 2000s, and I've been trying to go through them, but it's like 500 different.
Absolutely.
Now, we talked about the downtown community.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you guys were welcomed by your fellow merchants.
You're part of this too, like
Well,
we're
we're right down the street.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we see, we were talking about this earlier before we went on the air. It's like, we walk into WNIN and we know most of the people around, and we know them from literally coming into our store and just being part of it. But the Evansville downtown community is very tight, and I love it. And we look out for each other, and we do things with each other. I mean, people come into our store all the time because they leave the Ford Center and they start heading down Main Street, where there's one restaurant, and then they come into our store and they say, "Where should we go? What should we eat?"
Absolutely.
So just remember that other businesses that we get a lot of people saying, "Where should we eat?"
Oh,
And obviously we say, "Well, what do you want?"
Sure,
and then we direct them to different places, but we do what we can to keep people on Main Street, but it's really easy.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people that come into our store that are like, I was sent from 6 and 0. Mary from 6 and 0 sent us.
We love to send people over to the other stores with an insult for the people there.
Yeah, we send secret messages.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then every Saturday we have what we call the change shuffle, which is one of us will forget to get quarters, so we'll run over to all the other stores with a $10 bill and say, "Hey, can you break this?"
Yeah, it's not uncommon for somebody to come into this is inevitable. This is every Saturday. There's somebody from one of the other stores that comes into our store and says, "Hey, do you have ones?"
Yeah.
And then we're like, "Yeah, do you have quarters?"
Yep. Absolutely.
that's funny.
It's definitely a local thing.
We're each other's bankers.
Yeah. It's really funny.
So what are some top-selling books at your store?
So our number one selling book at all
What is our number one selling book?
out in Evansville.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Kelly Course.
The Kelly Course
absolutely.
book.
It by
Kelly.
like 30%, like by a huge amount.
To
Honestly,
be fair, we promoted the snot out of
absolutely,
this book.
and so did he. And everybody knows Kelly, so
Yes.
we didn't have to do a lot of work on that one.
Yeah.
Other than that, probably our best-selling national title is Mexican Gothic, which is a book that was very new when we first came out.
I don't know. I mean, this is such a strange question because we really are a niche store where, I mean, yeah, we bring in like, your new books, your bestsellers and things like that, but we're very different than that. I mean, so like off the top of my head, and this is in no particular order, but like we sell a lot of copies of Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, in all ages, easy read, throw it in your back pocket, read it. Most people of our generation know the story anyways, but they don't know that it's even a book and how different the book really is. We do a lot of sci-fi. We do a lot of fantasy.
So we do, lots of bookstores have what they call shelf talkers, which is the employees write a little blurb about a book and they put it on the shelf next to the book. We do them
as jokes to each other.
Partially, yeah. And sometimes there will be one that's unrelated to any book on the wall. Like there was one that I left for Adam that just said, "We don't respect James Joyce" on the wall for a while. I was just waiting to see who would notice it.
Oh,
it was me.
But
I took it down.
We write them on a typewriter from 1937 that belonged to our mom's neighbor. We write them on an index card. We put them up, and we put them on our favorite books, not the books that we're trying to push.
Right.
So your bestsellers, people already, they hear about it on NPR, they hear about it elsewhere, but there's a book called The Diamond Age, which is one of the most important books to me, and it is always on our shelf with a shelf talker faced out so that people can see it, because it's a book that I want to talk to people about. So if they read it, then I can talk to them.
And a lot of people don't recognize how many stories come from the classics, and they're just renamed, or they're based off of a short story, or
you just set out in a different time era.
Yeah, I mean, the completely, they always say the books and it's two different medias, so it's completely different even to begin with. So, books are always different than movies, and they always say which one's better, which one's worse. But it's not really like that, especially to us.
An amazing example of that in a book that we also love to push is The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah. They were written at the same time.
Yeah, so The Princess Bride book and movie were written by the same guy at the exact same time, and they both came out before the movie came out. So they're not based on each other. They're designed to work together.
And even the book is supposed to be written by somebody else.
Yeah, so the book is portrayed as a nonfiction history book that the author abridged based on when his father read it to him as a kid. His dad skipped over the boring parts.
The love part.
So he removed all of the boring parts. So a lot of the storytelling there'll be a paragraph that's written in brackets and italics that says, like, the prince here tried on hats for 40 pages, and it was a commentary on the excesses of royalty at the time. And I removed it because it doesn't really apply anymore. But the amazing thing about the book, one of the many amazing things about the book, number one, every line that's in the movie is also in the book, but every character gets a full chapter of backstory that didn't make it into the movie.
Which is beautiful.
Number two, everything that the author says is a lie. His About the Author section lies about what his wife did for a living, how many kids he has, what is the gender of the kids are.
But it's supposed to be because it's presented as something different.
Right. There's an interview with Stephen King in the back. That's a real interview, but Stephen King also lied about everything in the interview, where he claims that his family came from Florin, the kingdom that doesn't exist, that the novel takes place in.
It's really funny. And what's sad, because this guy was quickly becoming Douglas Adams, a modern day, Hitchhiker's Guide. But he there's actually a sequel to The Princess Bride that he started, and then he passed away. So there's only one chapter of this book, and it's in the back of most copies of The Princess Bride.
I'm like 90% sure that's also a lie, and he only read the one chapter.
You think he's still alive?
Maybe. It's Chuck Tingle.
Keeps going back to Bigfoot.
Yep.
So Princess Bride.
Yeah.
We love we love that book. It's so fun.
Obviously you do.
Yeah,
There's a 30-year-old book for you.
Yeah, and we this is a recommendation. But we sell it a lot, and we get a lot of people.
Doesn't sound like a children's book.
It's kind of. I mean,
it's a book that's designed to be read to your children, not for them to read.
It's an all ages book.
Okay.
But there's a lot of really good books that I would argue are all ages books. And
American Psycho.
American Psycho is definitely the kids' version of that is very short.
Okay. We're talking to Adam and Sam Morris, your brother's bookstore. Okay, now you have some banned books, of course, and you have them with a little thing on them or something. How do you identify your banned books?
So I take I do blind date with the books a lot, and I wrap them up in brown paper. I take all the scraps from those brown paper, and I just put a little band around a book, like a literal band that I tape of brown paper, and then I write "banned" on it. And but we are God, we could talk about banned books all day. I don't even know where to start.
I can start with the history, the definition of a banned book in the United States.
Let's explain that.
So we often hear from people, if this is a banned book, why can I go to the library and get it? And what a lot of people don't understand is that in the United States, the way that book banning works is if you have a public institution, you can have taxpayers, parents, members of the community, churches. They will issue a challenge that a book should be removed from a public institution. So this is libraries, this is schools, this is prisons even, government buildings. Essentially, the difference between curating books and banning books is I don't want my child to read this versus I don't want any child to read this. So they are local and they are widespread. So Penguin Random House, one of the major publishers, puts out a list of the most challenged books every year. That's the list that you usually see where it says banned. A lot of them are older challenges, but that list are the current most challenged books. So for example, the book Anne Frank's Diary is very commonly challenged. And the most common reason why it's challenged is she talks about her changing body and she talks about self-pleasure.
And having a crush on a boy.
So
it's a diary.
Whether that is the reason why it's actually banned or whether it's the excuse for why it's banned is a big part of the debate. So the kind of question for it comes down to, does a book have value even if you disagree with it. Another example, and one that a book that's commonly banned actually by the left, is a book called The 48 Laws of Power. The 48 Laws of Power is banned in every prison in the United States because of the fear that the prisoners will use it to manipulate the guards. The 48 Laws of Power is 48 short chapters about how to manipulate people to do what you want.
And not necessarily in a bad way.
Well,
but it can be.
It's written in a bad way, but it can be used to teach how do people manipulate you. So whether you should read the 48 Laws of Power as an instruction manual, probably not. But if you read about it as, when you're learning debate, you learn about logical fallacies so that you don't do them. And so you know when other people do them. You should read things that challenge you and things that you disagree with, because how can you argue with them if you don't?
Right, and you have to understand what these people are saying, and then you can, and challenge them with some kind of intelligence.
Well, sometimes you'd be surprised. But yeah, and one of my favorite books is the Absolute Part-Time. The Absolute Truth of a Part-Time Indian, I think is what it's called, somewhere along there. I fumble.
Sherman Alexie.
Like I've messed this title up so many times in my head that I'm never going to get it right. But it's literally about a Native American who goes to just a normal high school. As a kid that went to Harrison with the Warriors, there's a lot of crazy references that I kind of get and I kind of understand, because it's literally about a Native American who goes to a school where like their mascot dresses up like a chief and runs around and bangs on drums and things like that. And of course, that book is one of the most banned books because it kind of puts people in a bad spotlight.
Yeah. It like many banned books, it points out the ugliness of our history. It's challenging that ugliness and saying, let's be aware of it so that we don't repeat it.
Right.
Sure. Well, Grapes of Wrath, To Kill a Mockingbird, Catcher in the Rye, Lord of the Flies.
Absolutely.
The list goes on and on. These classics.
Yeah. And a lot of books people don't realize that they're banned. But I will say that the best thing that can ever happen to an author is their book getting banned.
Sure.
Because as soon as that book is banned, it's number one bestseller the next day.
It climbs that New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on a personal level with our bookstore, we very early on reposted here's a list of banned books. And what we weren't expecting was to get so much hate from it.
Yeah,
for months.
We still get it.
Yeah, that these books aren't banned. I'm looking at it at a library right now.
Cite your sources. And
cite your sources.
Literally
is a big one.
It's like, this is from the AP Press.
Here are 12 links from the National.
Like this, the original post is
make
AP.
this stuff up.
But the absolute worst thing that you can do for the two of us is challenge us when we're actually correct, because we will be petty about it. And us for that has manifested as we have so many banned books in the store, and we will tell you why it's dumb that they're banned.
Yeah, and we really do try to pay attention and really try to bring a focus to it. Like banned books is such a hot topic right now for a reason.
Yeah,
and we think it's really important to put those books out. And we don't just do like books that are banned in Texas,
Right.
We're doing books that are banned in New York and on the left and right, and we bring attention to how powerful books can be and what books can really do.
Absolutely. Everyone hates censorship except when they do it.
Okay, that's right. Okay, we've been teasing the whole program. Breaking news. Well, I'll let you guys explain this. You want to go with that?
Sure.
Sam?
So laying down a little bit of a foundation. The big ugly secret about book selling is that books are very expensive for bookstores to buy, and we can't make them very expensive for the customers because customers don't want to pay a ton of money. So what we're doing is we are getting a full line printing press.
This machine is 45 feet long from beginning to end. Yeah. To put some perspective on it, a free throw line to a free throw line is about 45 feet. be.
Is this going to be in your
No.
It's in what we call Site B, which is there's another local business owner who's letting us use some of his space.
Thinking,
for
where are you
it.
going to put that?
Yeah, it's a warehouse workshop thing.
Yeah.
but we've had to like build the suit and stuff.
Definitely.
What about gaming supplies? That must be a big deal.
Yeah. So I'm a gamer, and I again forced this into the company, but I wanted there to be places to buy games downtown. And especially, I wanted to be able to buy games myself at cost. We'll say.
There you go.
But no, people. There are a lot of gamers out there who are looking for less traditional games. So we're in this big boom of Dungeons and Dragons right now. For example, it's everywhere. You see it. You see, Vin Diesel plays Dungeons and Dragons, and there are a lot of independent games out there that they do things better than Dungeons and Dragons. They do unique things. There's more storytelling to them. There's just interesting things. So we wanted to really shine a spotlight on independent role-playing games, and we have board games and dice as well.
So your guys' location, the old National Bank Tower, of course, is gone. Got this empty lot there, but that won't be empty for long.
Is it? We keep hearing new things and then old things.
Well, I
and then
keep
new
hearing
things.
that something's going to happen eventually.
I
One
sure
day.
hope
And
so.
you guys are right next door.
Yeah,
So that's definitely going to be nice, too, to have
Yeah.
more traffic.
Yeah.
Do you get many tourists that just drop by?
Oh yeah.
It's so strange. So when there are concerts and things at the Ford Center, like obviously people don't want to walk into a concert holding a bag full of stuff they just bought.
Especially books.
So we don't get a lot of traffic from that. But the weirdest thing is we have the riverboat tours now, where there are people who come down the Ohio River on riverboats, and every 10 days they come up and they shop. And what's fascinating is so many of them are in love with Mark Twain and the tales of riverboating on the Ohio River. So it's largely like people from San Francisco who just wanted to cruise the Ohio River because of books.
Yeah.
So we just
And we happen to also be huge Mark Twain fans.
that
Oh,
that
so
is
we always
true.
have a lot of like Mark Twain stuff, but we really kind of focus on like Mark Twain's more obscure thing. Like everybody's got Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah.
But, he wrote a book about Joan of Arc also that he did years of research for and published through Harper's under a fake name, and then it got exposed because writing styles and people recognize
Huckleberry
that.
Finn, that's probably banned, too, someplace.
Oh, yeah. But most of Mark Twain is banned.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think, it's because of the language and the words that are used. And that's not always the case. He's a really funny satire person
Yes.
that's writing about some really, really controversial topics at the time.
Yes, he had definitely had his enemies at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's the
Still
first, they
does.
considered him the first global celebrity.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get that
No.
without ruffling feathers.
That's right. That's right.
As you know.
Right. Okay. Now, I was fascinated by this. Bookstores, of course, are great backdrops for movies. Of course, people go in there, quirky customers, you got dusty volumes up there and rare editions and everything. And of course, there's I thought one of the better movies I've seen about books, The Ninth Gate, with Johnny Depp.
We live that in real life.
Oh,
Well,
you do?
so-
No.
So the Ninth Gate is another one that people don't realize is based on a book.
Yeah.
The book that it's based on is called The Club Dumas, and it is not books about Satan that they're reading. It's the Three Musketeers. So those book plates are in a copy of the Three Musketeers, and the characters from the Three Musketeers are possessing people, and the whole cult is like Richelieu, and
Oh, my God.
it's absolutely wild. I'm actually working on an art piece right now where I cut the pages out of the Club Dumas and have arranged them into a collage with all of those weird book plates.
Oh, my God.
And it'll be in the store actually soon.
Beautiful.
It's funny you brought it up.
Oh, boy. And also, there are books about bookstores, too.
That's actually a huge thing right now. And there's a lot, I mean, romance is romance, but there's a lot of romance about meeting people in the bookstore,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting.
Yeah.
We are both taken, by the way.
We
Just putting that out there.
Sorry, David.
Well, let's go back to the movie Sleepless in Seattle.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
that's
Fox Books, FOX.
Oh,
Yeah, that book is really, especially for me personally, interesting because there's the corporate world and then the independent book world, and I'm a part of both now, I guess. And I haven't watched that movie in a long time until kind of recently. And I was like, oh, this is no longer fun for me. I feel like I need to go work. Like I'm like writing books down as they're talking about things. And,
okay, guys, got the last chance here. Some suggestions for folks out there for a good read. What's a couple books on your list there? Let's go with you, Adam.
oh no, on the spot, guys.
Well, let's go to Sam then.
No, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Sure. Go.
No, you go.
Okay. There is an author named Victoria Schwab. She writes under V.E. Schwab, and she has a new book that just got announced, and I'm not even going to say that one. In my opinion, the best book that she ever wrote was called A Darker Shade of Magic, which is interesting because it was published as young adult because it's a woman writing fantasy, but the themes in it are very much not a young adult book. And it's really a great example for me for how the publishing industry has some things to work on. And it's just an amazing book. It's great fantasy. It takes place in multiple versions of London, and there's one person that can travel between them who accidentally brings something bad through from one version of London to another version of London. And it's absolutely incredible. It's A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab.
There you go. Your recommendation. And what about you, Adam?
Man, I gotta admit, I'm all over the place right now. I'm reading a lot of satire because I'm working with a local author on a book of satire. And I'm kind of trying to stay in that mindset. So I've been reading a lot of silly stuff. And a book that's very hard to get. In fact, I don't even know if we can get it in the store. A guy named John Swartzwelder. He wrote 59 episodes of The Simpsons. He wrote a book that's called The Time Machine Did It. And it is hands down the funniest book I have ever read in my life. And it's just this bumbling Frank Burley detective is his name, Frank Burley. And he's just this detective that's just this bumbling idiot. And I love it. But we also do a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah.
We are fortunate to be in the industry that gives us advanced readers and things like that. So it's fun. It's good and bad because we'll get a book that we'll read and then 6 months later it comes out. But by then we've read so many other things and we plowed through it in the beginning that it's like this book sounds really familiar. And then, it all clicks.
Right.
But, whenever you get these advanced readers, they're different covers. But we get a lot of like audiobooks that are, and I know that we both, well, all of us at the store, we devour these audiobooks. Like I ride my bike to work every day listening to an audiobook.
Adam and Sam Morris, brothers who decided to open an independent bookstore in downtown Evansville. It's a great place to check out. It's kind of an adventure, looking at it that way. Thanks for being my guest on 2 Main Street, guys.
Thank you, David. This has been a real
Yeah.
honor.
Thank you.